you mention carbon footprint, your mind goes to just industries, maybe.
Hello? Can any other person hear me? Am I the one who is lost?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can't hear the speaker, but I can hear you.
I guess
All
it's,
right,
it's
all
our
right.
network.
Okay, we'll be back shortly, please.
All right. Am I being heard now?
Yes.
All right.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you as well.
Okay. I wouldn't know when I was logged off.
Yeah, she's back. Please, please let us stay muted. Thank you so much. We are working on. So I've made you co-host now.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is that just switch off your camera. Don't show your camera so that you'll be able to manage your bandwidth.
All right. Okay. So let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see the screen. Just make it full screen.
Okay.
Yeah,
How
good.
about
Yeah,
now?
good. Yeah, good.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So with this topic, I was stating that with this topic, everyone has to understand that carbon footprint management is everyone's role. It's not restricted to industries, neither is it restricted to countries, but even individual. We have a critical role to play in carbon footprint management. I'm hoping that by the end of this session, we would have understood what carbon footprint is, the definition, importance of managing our carbon footprint, and the role of individuals, industries, countries, and our next steps in managing carbon footprint. So by definition, when we talk about carbon footprint, we are looking at the total amount of greenhouse gases, specifically carbon dioxide and other carbon components by an individual, organization, or country. Now, let me explain it in a better way that will be easy to understand. So carbon footprint is quite different from carbon dioxide. Okay, but then because carbon dioxide is the matrix or the benchmark for every other GHG, everybody tends to associate carbon dioxide with carbon footprint. But whenever we're talking about carbon footprint, we are looking beyond CO2, that's carbon dioxide. We are focusing more on the broader GHGs, all other GHGs like NOx, oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur, methane, even water vapor. So these are greenhouse gases. So when you hear someone mention carbon footprint, the person is looking at all other greenhouse gases, not only carbon dioxide. And the unit for measuring carbon footprint is CO2 equivalent. Why the unit for measuring carbon dioxide is tons of carbon dioxide, that's TCO2. Okay, so that is the difference. And then for you to be able to measure your carbon footprint, you need to know the global warming potential. But before we get to that, let us look at how do we even measure our carbon footprint, or what are the likely sources of our emissions. So when I'm talking about emission, I'm not just looking at only carbon dioxide. Like I stated, I'm also looking at other GHGs that may come up from our human anthropogenic activities. Now, the first and foremost one is what we call the direct emissions. So we'll have the direct emissions, and then we have the indirect emissions. Now, direct emission has to do with our scope 1 emission, while indirect emission has to do with scope 2, scope 3 emission, and even the scope 4 emission, avoided emissions that is yet to be, approved and released. Now, when we talk about scope 1 emission, direct emission, we're looking at emissions from sources that are directly owned or controlled by that entity. So by entity, I mean an organization, it could be an individual, meaning that you can also estimate your scope 1 emission. Okay, it's not just left for organizations or countries. After all, it's the accumulation of all our emissions that come to, that we can now say that this is what a country emits. Now, when you look at your scope 1 emission, what are you looking at? You are basically looking at what is within your scope, your boundary, area of authority that you are generating yourself. So you're entirely responsible for that. For an organization, whether it's the hard-to-abate industry or the non-hard-to-abate industry, you're looking at all aspects of your production process, all aspects of your operations. What are the emissions that could come off it? It could be from electricity generation. It could be from thermal energy generation. It could be from even waste. Okay, I believe that we all understand that we can actually have a chunk of GHG from waste, because once waste decomposes in anaerobic situation, that's in the absence of oxygen, you would have methane. And once waste degenerates or decomposes or decays in the presence of oxygen, you will have CO2. So you're also having GHGs, from waste. So all of these when you add all of this or sum all of this together, you get your absolute scope 1 emission. Now, I just explained it from the industry perspective. Now, let's look at individual perspective. So one of the basic needs of man is food. You have to consume food. And for you to be able to achieve an edible food, you need to combust it. You need to heat it up in order to make it edible. And in order to achieve this, you would need fuel to generate heat, which will warm your food. Now, to generate this heat, most especially more time than not, you have to burn fossils. And then different fossils, it could be coal. Okay, now that gas is quite expensive, a lot of people resort to coal, which has fixed carbon. Okay, so you can imagine that each time that you combust coal in the presence of oxygen, you look at the amount of CO2 that is emitted, okay, aside from the other gaseous pollutant that are also emitted. Now, even if you use gas, some people say that always is easy to say that gas is a cleaner form of, energy. But then again, it doesn't remove the fact that you're also having emissions when you are combusting with gas. Okay, when you're generating your heat using gas, because gas has an emission factor, though it is lowest if you look at other fossils, but then you're also emitting, gaseous pollutants. You're also emitting GHGs. So in the process of combusting, your food, in order to make it edible, you are what? Emitting direct emissions as an individual. Then let's look at the indirect emissions. So when you talk about indirect emission, the first part is what we call scope 2. Scope 2 generally comes from procurement of electricity. So if it is not within your scope, it is different from a household that maybe you're not getting from the grid. Now you want to generate your own electricity, okay, using either PMS or whichever form or whichever one that you want to use. But then you are using a genset. For the fact that you are generating that electricity in your home, it's still under your scope 1. It's something as an industry that has a captive power plant, okay, and they are able to generate their own electricity using whether gas or coal, okay, that still falls under scope 1. But then when you are not procuring from, third party, from grid, that falls under scope 2. Now, as an individual, you get your electricity from national grid. We always, especially in Nigeria, we have this feeling sometimes we now say, okay, our electricity actually comes from hydro. But then again, I remember when I was trying to estimate electricity generation, emissions from electricity for every other countries where we operate, and then Nigeria. So it made me go down into trying to decipher what is even the percentage that is from hydro, that's renewable, and what is the percentage that is from, non-renewable. If you look at it, you'll find out that Nigeria electricity generation that is from non-renewable is more than 85%. So we have about just 15% that is from renewable. The remaining is actually from non-renewable. That's why we have a lot of all these, GenCos, power stations, power gas companies, okay, that also feed to the grid. So it's about 15% or thereabouts that comes from, Shiroro and of course Kainji, meaning that once you are using or procuring electricity, you are also contributing towards scope 2 emission, even as an individual and as an industry. Then the other part of indirect emission is scope 3, which is emission that is sourced not directly from not directly controlled entity, meaning that from your supply chain. So what you procure, there must have been an energy that must have gone into it and all of that. So the emissions that is from that process, you also have to, determine it using probably IPC template calculation or DEFRA template calculation to be able to estimate it. Now, what indirect emissions calculation helps you to do is to understand what you are emitting. Okay, it is not directly within your scope, but it makes you to choose wisely, make wise decision when you want to purchase items. So it makes you to look at more eco-friendly items, whenever you want to procure things. So that is environmental stewardship. And that is what we are projecting. That is part of carbon footprint management, because whatever you cannot measure, you cannot manage. So if we keep on living our lives the way we are living it, we don't really care about what we emit, what we use, all aspects of our operations. It then means that we are nowhere in managing it. So first of all, we have to understand how this has bearing on us, on our operation, on our process, on the way we live our life. And then, of course, we now learn how to manage it. That said, next thing is, how do we even estimate carbon CO2 equivalent? So we have already understood that when we're talking about CO2 equivalent, we are looking at not just only carbon dioxide, but other GHGs. But then there has to be a matrix to be able to estimate it. Okay, this is where a lot of people run into confusion in trying to be able to achieve this. Now, each GHG has what is called a global warming potential, GWP, okay, and is actually benchmarked against CO2, because CO2 is the most predominant GHG in the atmosphere, but then it has the lowest global warming potential. In fact, the GHG with the highest global warming potential is called sulfur hexafluoride, SF6. Okay, so and also if you want to estimate this, look at a lifespan, a horizon of about 100 years. These SFS has about 22,000 within that range of global warming potential. Okay, meaning that one sulfur hexafluoride is about 22,000 of carbon dioxide, but then, okay, it is not readily available. It's not, you don't see it so much, okay? It's minute when compared to the prevalence of carbon dioxide. So basically how to estimate this is the quantity of greenhouse gas that you have in tons, multiplied by the global warming potential, and then you have it in CO2 equivalent, okay? So with this, you can actually consolidate all your GHGs. Okay, so basically, if for an industry that engages in maybe thermal, then use a lot of thermal energy, what you basically see is not source methane. Okay, if you are combusting and then you are having an incomplete combustion, then you could have methane and of course CO2. So once you consolidate this, you can have your CO2 equivalent. Then you are speaking in terms of GHGs, not just CO2. Carbon footprint management, what is very, very crucial for a lot of reasons. So when you talk about carbon footprint management, it's not just, a topic, but it is something that speaks to us, because of course, we have seen that the minerals is already with us. We have seen that the effects are already with us. So let me take us back to some of the protocols that we have. The first one was the Montreal Protocol. Okay, so when Montreal Protocol was established in around 1997, it was actually because of what? The ozone depleting element. Okay, so then they were looking at what was actually causing global warming. Everybody was just focusing on just the ozone depleting element. Basically, let me explain how this issue of climate change, how we cascade it. So we have two scenarios that can actually lead to what can cause climate change. So we have from ozone depleting elements, and then we have from greenhouse gases. So when you talk about the ozone depleting element, we are looking at the chlorofluorocarbons or hydrogen chlorofluorocarbons, okay, that we could get from our refrigerants. And then when we talk about the GHGs, of course, I had already explained those, mostly from combustion process, process, though you could also get from waste. I had already explained how you can actually achieve it from waste, either in anaerobic or aerobic decomposition. Now, the ozone depleting elements, which are the hydrofluorocarbons, once they are released, what they do is that they deplete the ozone layer. And when the ozone layer is depleted, you could have global warming. Okay, then let's move to the aspect of GHGs. When GHGs are released, they form a film in the atmosphere, and then you could have greenhouse effects. So both greenhouse effect from the GHGs and the ozone and the global warming that could come from the ozone depleting elements. So both of them can give you what generally global warming, and then the global warming can cause climate change. Okay, so that was why at that initial time, what people were looking at was just the ozone depleting elements. And with that, the Montreal Protocol was launched. And it has actually helped in phasing off. You find out that some of the refrigerants that were in use then had been phased off. But then again, it did not quite help us to achieve the desire to, reduce or speedily reduce the climate change that was being noticed. In fact, it's not it's not the best way to manage climate change. So I will not call it the best climate action. Then from that, we moved to the Kyoto Protocol. Now, the Kyoto Protocol basically was looking at the developed countries, or would I say the industrialized countries, not the developing countries. That is why you still see countries like, Nigeria saying that we have not even contributed so much to climate change. Why are we being asked, to involve in climate actions? So that protocol focused on the developed countries, mandating them to reduce their emissions. And when that was not achieving the impact that is needed, you need to understand that once you talk about climate change, it is not a case of polluter pay principle. It is here with us. Even if you had contributed 0%, it is the climate. Everyone, it affects everyone. That is why all hands has to be on deck to ensure that we minimize those things that lead to it. So when Kyoto Protocol 2 was not, speedily achieving what was needed, then we had to move to 2015 to Paris Agreement, which every country is actually mandated to make a pledge as at when they will reduce their achieve net zero, which was actually, pegged at 2050. But of course, some developing countries, have this benefit to be able to alter it. That's why Nigeria chose 2060 to be able to achieve net zero. So all of these are in line to ensure that we minimize GHGs in the atmosphere, GHGs that we generate, and achieve carbon footprint management, which is a prerequisite to achieving, which is a big climate action and a prerequisite to reduce climate change. Now, when looking at this, what are the key reasons we are highlighting that the importance of carbon footprint management is to mitigate climate change, okay, which I had already explained, and then to meet regulatory requirements. There are a lot of regulatory requirements that we need to meet in terms of this. So you have requirements. If every industry have their own requirements, okay, whether it is the hard to abate industry or non-hard to abate industry, there are requirements that you have to meet, and then it is compulsory for you to meet it. Okay, it's a compliance obligation. So this is another driver to achieving carbon footprint management. Then sustainability and corporate responsibility. One of the SDGs, SDG 13, which is climate action, So if you are an advocate or you just want a better world, especially when we look at the definition of sustainability, to tell you the development that meets the needs of the now in such a way that you not jeopardize the ability of the future to be able to meet their own needs. Okay, so if you're a proponent of this definition, you understand that it is a must do. If you want to ensure that the ecosystem is maintained, at least for the future, for the generation. Okay, let me even bring it down to a way that maybe it can make more meaning to us. Basically, if you want to generate electricity, as I had already explained, that most countries that will always tell you that you're even on renewable, that the renewable that they actually use in generating electricity is less than half. Okay, meaning that we are most reliant still on fossils. Now, if you want to generate using, let's say gas is the four that you want to use. Let's say you have a captive power plant and you use gas to be able to generate your electricity like most industries do. And some also use coal. So if you are using gas, it then means that the gas methane has to come from where a fractional distillation of what? Crude oil. Now, crude oil is a non-renewable material or resource, meaning that once it is non-renewable, it means that it's difficult for it to be replenished. At least within a lifespan, it's not going to be replenished. So we can safely say that once you use it, you lose it. Now, you have been able to utilize it to generate your own electricity. How about the future? Okay, so, sustainability makes us to think beyond the now. It makes us to look at how well do we use the resources that are available at the moment in such a way that you will still have resources remaining for the future to be able to meet their own development, So let's also look at the cement industry generally. What the major raw material for cement manufacturing is limestone. Limestone, being a natural resource, is also non-renewable. Okay, it is a non-renewable natural resource because it will take, even if you undergo reclamation and all of that, it will take millions of years for you to have that same formation. Okay, whatever type of rock it may be, whether igneous, metamorphic, or sedimentary. Okay, it will take a number of millions of years, basically, for it to be replenished. So making it non-renewable. Now, if we continue the way we are going, with the not practicing circular economy, misusing materials, wastages, and all that we have at the moment, then what about the future? What about the next generation? How are they going to have resources to be able to make use of? So you see how sustainability is another driver for carbon footprint management. Next is operational efficiency and cost savings. So when you look at carbon footprint management, it's not just about the environmental aspect. There's also an operational efficiency and cost savings. Okay. Now, in order to be able to manage your carbon footprint, there are a lot of things you could introduce in your process. So we have organizations looking at energy substitution. Okay, so in place of the fossil fuels or the high capital intensive, fossils, they are now moving towards waste. So that's why you hear aspect like waste to energy. So they're now looking at how to maximize waste, so long as you have it has calorific value. Okay, there's heat content, you can derive heat from it. Okay, it doesn't matter the ratio, you can always alternate either 2:1, 1.5:1, but the most important thing is that it has the calorific value. There's heat content, you are able to achieve the thermal energy that you desire. So you see organization moving towards that direction, and with that, on the net value, they can actually reduce their emission. So when we are calculating our emissions, absolute emissions, we have the gross and the net. So net means when we have actually reduced all other aspects that we have been able to, substitute with things like waste, biomasses, and all of that. So which of course is net zero. Okay, so biomass definitely, because any emission that is from biomass is actually what it was able to, attract or imbibe during the period of its lifetime. Another one is cost saving. With this, you have a lot of cost saving. If you look at substitution of fossils with non-fossils, let's say biomass, a lot of, the difference is huge in terms of cost. So if to the organization or to the individual, there's a lot of cost saving. And then risk management, market competitiveness. It makes you to be, to be a market leader, because you are not just you're not just producing, just thinking of the now. You are producing, you are using what we call best practice in order to achieve your operations. And then innovation and technological advancement, then international collaboration. So what are the roles of individual in carbon footprint management? So as of now, we have already understood what carbon footprint management is and how to calculate and measure it. And then also, we have also understood that it's not just the role of industries or countries, but of course, individuals. We have a critical role to play to ensure that we manage our carbon footprint. Next is, what is the role of individual in carbon footprint management? So basically, individuals are supposed to be aware. First, if you're not aware, there's no way you can do anything about it. So the essence is, first of all, we are trying to, run a lot of advocacy projects, talk to people, organize a lot of seminars and sensitization. Let everyone be aware of the role that they're supposed to play, okay? And also be aware of how they are contributing toward the level of carbon footprint that we are having at the moment. Okay, so once this level of awareness is achieved, it will not be easy to manage it. And it's the awareness that will bring about a change in lifestyle. And how to achieve this awareness is through advocacy. So individuals can make a significant impact by adopting a sustainable lifestyle. So be aware and informed on climate change. Also reduce your energy consumption, use energy efficient appliances, switch to clean energy sources. So let's look at energy efficient appliances. So we can see now that we have some refrigerators, air conditioners, that are eco-friendly. Okay, meaning that when you power, for you to be able to power and utilize them, they draw less energy. Okay, so the electrical energy consumption is less than the regular ones. So when you do this, you're not looking at the initial monetary investment. You're looking at the overall benefit that you're going to derive from it. Apart from the fact that in the long run, your consumption will reduce. In the long run too, you are becoming more friendly to nature. Okay, it's an eco-friendly activity. So we need to be looking beyond the now and embrace what the future would appreciate. So let's talk for eco-friendly transportation too. If possible, whenever you can, please use public transport. I'm an advocate of that. Okay, because now when you look at carbon footprint management, when we get to what countries are doing, you just see how it's actually segregated. Transportation is a critical part when it comes to analyzing carbon footprint. Transportation. Okay. Now, when you drive alone in your car, now, if you want to estimate the carbon footprint, you look at the quantity of fuel that you had combusted and just divide by only you. Okay, that's also how we divide it per capita. You divide just by only you. That is the tons of CO2 emission per person. But then when you use, when you carry more people, let's say you do carpool, you carry more people in your vehicle, it's not just only you, okay? Then you divide it by the number of persons in that car. Okay, you find out that the carbon footprint had reduced. And also when we use public vehicles, when it's convenient to do, you find out that we end up reducing our carbon footprint. Okay, another one is to conserve resources, reduce, reuse, recycle. So this speaks to circular economy. Okay, so circular economy is a kind of economy, basically, whereby it is different from linear economy, which is in order to make, you utilize and then you waste. But when you call it circular economy, that means you have moved from linear to a situation whereby instead of wasting, you reduce, you reuse, you refurbish, you remake, you recycle, just so that it will be in the system and so that your waste will be minimized. So with this, you now see a lot of industry. What would generally have been called waste becomes a byproduct of another operation. Okay, now we have seen power plants utilizing the flue gases from their operation to power steam turbines. Okay, we have also seen power plants utilizing the flue gases, to heat up other processes, which we call energy recuperation. So we have seen a lot of, dimensions whereby we don't just waste now. People are not looking beyond that particular thing that you call waste. How can we utilize it for another process? So that is circular economy. And even as an individual, we can also imbibe it. In our homes, we have to look at all the processes from our homes. We have to look at what we do. What do we waste? Those things that we waste, is there any way that we can find an alternative use to it? That's circular economy. Then embrace sustainable diet, reduce meat consumption, choose locally sourced food, be a climate action ambassador. And let's look at the role of industries. So because industries are actually seen as biggest contributors to, climate change. Though if we look at how, US sees there, you find out that just after industries, you have residents. Okay. But then when we look at how Nigeria categorizes theirs, you see transportation, energy are follow, waste. Okay, and all of these have an interconnectivity to industries. Now, industries are major contributors to carbon emission. So how do we achieve carbon footprint management in an industry? So implement energy efficient practices, use renewable energy, upgrade your equipment. So I'll give an example. Let me give an example. I've already spoken about thermal energy. Let me talk about electrical energy. So there are industries that use a lot of megawatts of electricity in order to power heavy drives. Okay, so we have drives that may be rated like 6 to 10 megawatts. Okay, now we have also seen industry looking beyond that, trying to find out this. Most of these may be like induced draft fans. Okay, then why is it consuming this much? Is it because it is at the moment damper controlled? Can you use GRR, which is grid rotor rheostat, to be able to drive it? All of this, helps in reducing the draft that is actually needed, or helps you to achieve it in a more efficient way. And by so doing, the power consumption reduces. And when you look at power consumption, how do you even generate that power? It still tilts back towards the fossils that you combust in your power plant to be able to generate it. So once you're able to reduce your power demand, electrical energy demand, what happens? The source also reduces, because most industries don't store power. You actually generate on demand, meaning that if you waste it, if you idle your equipment when you are not actually putting it to productive use, the power plant will continue, running to be able to meet that demand. In the same vein, if you put all the lights, if you're not using like energy bulbs, energy saving bulbs, you put all lights on, even when you're not in the room, you're not using it, the power plant will still keep on running and be generating the electricity, whether you're using it or not, whether you're wasting it or not. So you find out that in the long run, what happens? You are not engaging in an eco-friendly activity. The earth suffers, the ecosystem suffers, you also suffer, because the effect of climate change does not just reside with the polluter, it resides with everyone. Then promote green supply chain management, prioritize eco-friendly suppliers. Okay, so it's quite a beautiful thing to notice that a lot of suppliers now try to embrace, eco-friendly practice. You see a lot of them using, the logo, showing that, of course, they are eco-friendly in their practices. So even in the packaging material that they use, you see some of them going lean in the packaging material just to achieve a resource conservation and also reduce waste, because once they are not lean in their packaging material and it gets to you, it forms what we call the post-consumer waste, okay, which increases your waste generation in your operations. Then engage in carbon offsetting initiative, invest in renewable energy projects. Thermal substitution with green hydrogen, which at the moment is still being explored. That's electrolysis of water, carbonation and recarbonation. This we can see in the built industry. Carbon capture, utilization and storage. So I was opportune to attend an IFC World Bank event on this. So at the moment, what they are trying to explore in Africa is CCS, that's carbon capture and storage, not yet utilization. So once we're able to achieve this, and then the next will now be utilization. So this would actually mean a big break, to us, if we are able to achieve this. So they have done their prototyping, they have actually done their preliminary scoping to be able to identify, industries that are hard to abate, that are heavy emitters. Okay, they have also tried to scope, look at locations where you have a lot of emissions, okay, due to maybe prevalence of industries or other activities that could generate that. Okay, so this is what is at the moment happening. So if we're able to achieve it, the partnership is actually with Halliburton to provide them with, the locations to be able to trap these CO2. So once we're able to achieve this, then we can now start looking at the storage aspect of the utilization aspect of it, whereby the CO2, after being purified, treated, and all of that, could actually be put to other use. Then the next one is decarbonize. Decarbonize your process, decarbonize electricity, decarbonize your product. So decarbonizing your process is just all about looking at your process, whether as an individual or as an industry. Look at your process and identify, there's something that we do when we are trying to look at the areas where emissions, GHGs are basically generated in an industry. So we do what we call streams. We look at the emission streams, okay, or the emission sources. And then if you want to decarbonize, you now start from there. So you look at where are the sources, okay, where you have we have prevalence of emissions, then that's how you try to look at how do you decarbonize it. Is it by material substitution, waste utilization, reduction of fossils? You just look around your process and look at how you can achieve, reduction in the material that actually give off these emissions. And then electricity. So we have seen also industries moving towards solar. Okay, so that's a way to decarbonize electricity. So in place of, because of how difficult it is to actually manage solar, first you have to look at a surface area, a lot of surface area for the panels and all of that. And then you look at the megawatts that you need. Okay, so for industries that need a lot of megawatts, it may be difficult to achieve it one hand. So what they do is they decentralize it, probably the administrative buildings. Okay, you can start by that, decentralizing electricity so that your administrative buildings can actually run on, solar before you move to other processes. And of course, your product. So once your product is eco-friendly, you have actually tried to, decarbonize the carbon footprint that is actually derived from that. That is why you see in an industry, when you are estimating your carbon footprint intensity, it is per unit of your product. Even when companies, pledge to net zero, okay, try to decarbonize or set decarbonization levers, what they actually do is that on intensity, they look at a unit of their product. What is the CO2 emission that is coming from 1 ton of this product, 1 kilogram of this product, 1 bottle? Okay, so that is actually how to run around it. I just picked 2 industries. One is I picked energy industry from USA, and then I picked the Global Cement and Concrete Association. Okay, so now the GCC, which is Global Cement and Concrete Association, has also been able to project their own decarbonization lever. So what you can see on the right-hand side is their decarbonization lever. So they are looking at, by 2050, they should have been able to decarbonize the industry, that cement and concrete industry. And how are they going to do that? Now, look at the mapping. Okay, 6% will be from CO2 sink recarbonization in the built industry. 5% should be from decarbonization of electricity, 36% from CCUS, 11% from savings in clinker production, 9% savings in cement and binders, meaning that in these, you can actually alternate the kind of cement that is being produced. Okay. Then efficiency, 11% efficiency in concrete production and 22% efficiency in design and construction. Just as
what? Design and construction.
Okay, I heard someone talk. Is that a question?
Please continue. Please go ahead.
Continue.
Please go ahead.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. So yeah, 22% efficiency in design and construction. And then let's move to another one. That's Department of Energy for US. So this is another industry, the energy industry. Now let's look at how US categorize theirs. On the left-hand side, you will see, the emitters basically. So you see that the bulk of it is actually coming from transportation, followed by industry, residential, and then commercial. Okay, why I brought out this is because, sometimes we feel that as individuals, we are not major contributors. Okay, once anybody mentions emissions, we look at industry, we look at transportation. But then again, we don't even look at what we are generating. If you equate I was trying to look at Nigeria, for instance, the number of, trying to move it apart, the electricity generation using generators and electricity generation from, all other sources. Basically, Nigeria would need about 40,000 megawatts, okay? But at the moment, the about 23 power plants that we have, both the renewable ones and non-renewable, their rated capacities are around 11,000. And at the moment, in terms of what they're able to generate, is about 50 to 60%, okay, of that rated capacity, meaning that is why Nigerians rely on what? Generating their own electricity using what? Generators. Okay, now when you look at it, in order to match that gap, the gap is actually high. In order to match it, you find out that you're almost at par to what that is being generated from, that is being gotten from the grid. We are almost at par. So, but because we are not taking cognizance of that, we are not measuring it, we are not accounting for it. So it's quite easy to feel that it's just industry. But energy is a big matrix. When you are talking about decarbonization or carbon footprint, energy is a big matrix. And then when you're looking at energy, especially electrical energy, you have to look at the individual aspect of it too. We have a role to play. And then in industry, how they categorize, they look at all the industries, the ones that have the highest, other industries, non-manufacturing industries, refining, iron and steel, cement and lime, chemicals. You see their cement and lime is actually low because they have tried very much to achieve decarbonization of the cement and lime industry. Now, what strategies are they deploying in order to ensure that they decarbonize their Department of Energy? So they look at low carbon fuels. Okay, so in low carbon fuels, we look at basically bio fuels, whether it is biogases, which can also be obtained from municipal waste. So you must have been hearing about biogases, biofuels. And of course, I mentioned hydrogen, green hydrogen, which can be gotten from electrolysis of water, then carbon capture, utilization and storage. So they are more advanced than us. These CCUS that we're talking about that we are still trying to explore. Okay, we are still doing scoping, analyzing, looking for the domains that will house them and all of that. They are already advanced in this capturing. Then industrial electrification and energy efficiency. Then industries. So now, we need to understand that we feed into the industry, okay? What we emit as individuals, what organizations or industries emit, all of these, sum total of this feed into the countries, okay? Then governments play a crucial role in setting policies and regulations in order to achieve carbon footprint management. So they are supposed to establish emission reduction targets, participate in international agreements like the Paris Agreement, okay? Promote renewable energy investment, support research and development, encourage green infrastructure, prioritize public transportation. So that is why I get happy when, I look at what we have in Lagos State, the transportation we have in Lagos State, which, is actually permitting a lot of people being able to access it at their convenience as well. So this is another way to ensure that this is managed. If other locations, other states, can also practice this or, borrow leave from this, we'll be edging towards actualization of our aim. And then implement carbon pricing mechanisms. Okay, so this one we need to talk about. So, when Nigeria actually when Nigeria developed the NDC, that's nationally determined contribution. So in keying into Paris Agreement, you have to, once you have keyed into Paris Agreement, you have already stated that you are making a commitment to ensure that you keep on reducing your emission, okay? So you give yourself short-term target and long-term target. For Nigeria, the short-term target is 2030 and the long-term target is 2060. And Nigeria had stated that they are believing that by 2030, the emissions should be reduced by 20%. Okay, business as usual model. Okay, but then with international support, they are hoping that it will be reduced by 47%. And one of the mechanisms that they are looking at is carbon pricing mechanism, okay, and what we call carbon tax. The truth is that a lot of countries are already implementing this. Is best if we keep an open mind and know what we are and start projecting, looking at, okay, this could happen. Okay, this could actually happen. With that, it drives us to ensure that we start managing our carbon footprint. Okay, even removal of subsidy from petroleum is still part of it, because if you're incentivizing crude and all of that, that means that you're actually encouraging much usage of that. But then again, you look at a country that wants to halve their emission, reduce their emissions, okay? There are some proactive steps that may not be favorable that they have to take. So, you see a lot of countries doing even much more, much more things in order to ensure that they reduce emission because of Because of what? Climate change. Because they know if they don't take big and proactive steps, it's going to have a negative effect on us all. So if you look at, this is from what data, production-based CO2 for Africa. Okay, you'll find out that South Africa is ranking the highest. As of now, South Africa has a carbon budget. Okay, they are already highest and they have a carbon budget. So meaning that each organization is allotted a particular carbon that is permissible for them to emit. Once you exceed that carbon, that CO2 emission or CO2 equivalent emission, you pay per ton generated. Okay. Now look at where Nigeria is. Nigeria is fourth on the line. That means that we are still we are going up. We continue with business as usual model. Okay. It then means that before you know it, we may overshoot the other ones. So it then brings to our consciousness that everyone has a role to play. We have a role to play in order to achieve this. I got this data from what data? The CO2 emission by fuel type in Nigeria. Okay, where we mentioned flaring as at 2020. I pulled this for 2020: gas, oil, coal. Okay, and the one that is the highest is oil. Okay, and they're followed by gas, and then flaring also from in industrial perspective, cement, and then coal. Then we now look at basically what other things that are also driving the implementation of carbon footprint management. So we have a lot of national regulations, acts, treaties, that are or policies that are also supporting us to drive that. So in the year 2017, okay, Nigeria rolled out the first NDC. Okay, so in that NDC, they estimated that our carbon footprint is going to be 900 million tons. Normally, the way we are living our lives, 900 million tons by 2030. Okay, then afterwards, in 2021, it was reviewed. So in the review, what happened is that there was a recalculation, re-verification of data. So normally once a data is rolled out, of course, you have to look at, other entities will also come in and screen it. Like we have UKAID was also part of the organization that helped in, screening this data, helping to provide some of the data that is needed for this. So it was reviewed in 2021 that our emission is actually going to be is actually less than what was initially projected. Okay, and that by 2021, that was when that was released, that it will be around 453 million tons CO2 equivalent by 2030. And then normally our projection is that by 2030, we should be able to reduce it by 20% with business as usual model. And by 2060, we should be able to reduce it by, no, that same 2030, we should be able to reduce it by 45% if we have international support, meaning that if we get international support to be able to, decarbonize. Okay, just as we got international support for solar, electrification using solar, and then by 2060 to achieve net zero. In order to achieve, so what is driving this are all of what I listed here. We have NGS, maybe disclosure guidelines. We even have investors, asking organizations to disclose what is their emission. We have rating agencies that on their own, you will not even solicit. On their own, they will start rating you and start publishing it, that this is where you are in terms of emission, because you don't want that negative, publicity. It drives you to start doing something to, be positive. Then let's quickly look at some countries and what they are doing. I already mentioned that South Africa has a carbon tax, okay? And their target is to decarbonize the electricity sector by 2050. Zambia national policy on climate change. So their target is to reduce CO2 emissions by 25% in 2030 and 47% with international support. Ghana National Climate Change Policy, NCCP. So the target is 8.5 metric tons of CO2 equivalent GHG reduction by 2025 and further 24.6 million tons CO2 equivalent by 2030. Then basically on our NDC, what we consider that just these 5 aspects: waste, AFOLO, which is agriculture, forestry, and other land use, IPPU, which is industrial processes and products use, and energy. And then look at what we are projecting in order to achieve our target of 20% by 2030 or 45% with international support by 2030. We are looking at 2.5 energy intensity reduction, 25% of trucks using CNG. So we want to convert, trucks from the ones that are using ordinary gas or maybe AGO to, compressed natural gas by 2030. And then I want us to look at electricity generation, 30% on grid generation from renewable. Remember I mentioned that we are about 15% at the moment on renewable. So basically we are still heavy on fossils in terms of electrical energy generation. So the target is to go to 30% on green generation using renewables. And then for other industrials, 80% reduction in hydrofluorocarbons by 2047 and the likes. So then what roles do we have to place? First is GHG accounting. So basic steps involved in emission accounting. First, identify your emission sources, collect your process data, meaning your operation data. Okay, then the emission factor determination. So what we always advise for emission factor determination is to use IPCC, Intergovernmental Protocol on Climate Change, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So they have emission factors for all different types of fossil-based fuels and non-fossil, even for biomasses. Okay, so use it to estimate your emissions and then report and verification. If time permits me, I'll quickly explain how to, explain how to calculate this. Then collaboration. For effective carbon footprint management, individuals, industries, and countries need to work together. Okay, if you look at SDG Goal 17, it's partnership for all the goals. So in order to achieve all the goals, you need partnership. It's not something one person can do alone. It's something all of us have to unify in order to achieve. Okay, so international collaboration, encourage sustainable involvement, support research and development initiatives. Then another one is we have to be accountable. So I had already explained how industries are becoming accountable due to regulations, EPR, that is Standard Producer Responsibilities, laws, bylaws, act, rating agencies, investors, okay? Then countries are also, becoming responsible and accountable. Okay, I had mentioned the carbon budget in South Africa. Okay, also Canada has implemented a carbon tax. So some of these countries, even China, they have implemented carbon tax. Nigeria, this year, February, there was a publication that Nigeria is going to implement a carbon tax. So it is here already with us, and all of these things are propelling us to start, managing our carbon footprint. Then as an individual, how would you be accountable? What do you need to do? So for effectiveness and efficiency, accountability is very crucial. So please, you have to create a personal mission statement. You have to declare that really on an individual level, you want to start being accountable for your own carbon footprint. So when we talk about emission scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, you as an individual, you also have your own scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Okay, and you can start accounting. You can start taking responsibility of what you do. Just a little thing I said, do not switch off the lights when not in use, switch off the fans when not in use, and all of those things. These are little things that when you accumulate them, you see what you are contributing in ensuring that your country's emission is minimized. Set smart and micro goals. So it must not be huge, but just say, okay, you want to minimize. I can also explain to you how you can even estimate your emissions from, if it's coming from grid, because you already know the kilowatt hour that you consume. Okay, I'll just give you the factor, you multiply it. You know the emissions that is coming from your household per month. So you can decide that you're going to have this, you are going to reduce this, and you take, proactive little steps. Okay, and then you celebrate your little wins. As you win, as you achieve it, you say, wow, you have done this, you have achieved this, because in the overall, it's also feeding into what the country is reporting. So do one task at a time, make yourself accountable. Okay, seek feedback, emphasize your strength and improve your weakness. So in this call, you are not alone. You can always ask questions, you can reach out, find out what other people are doing, and then review yourself. So in summary, carbon footprint management is integral, very, very integral to addressing climate change, meeting regulatory requirements, promoting sustainability, ensuring operational efficiencies, managing risks, and a whole lot of other things. Also contributing to global collaborative efforts for more sustainable future. I had already explained this. So it is very, very essential for us to combat climate change. If you hear anybody talking about combating climate change, these climate actions are what every one of us have to take. So it is everyone's call. It is not just for industries. It is not just for country. In fact, once you hear your country being mentioned, it should send a signal to you that you are also a contributor. If it's from transportation, from energy use, from waste generation, you are a contributor. So it should ring a bell. Normally, if you want to estimate your carbon footprint, basically from fuel consumption, okay, if it's gaseous fuel, you always get normal meter cube or SM cube, that's standard meter cube. So you use the density to convert it to mass. And once you convert it to mass, you use the NCV, that's net calorific value, to convert it to an energy value. Whatever kind of food I use, convert it to an energy value. So it could be in kilocalories or gigajoules. Then you now look at what is the emission factor. So emission factor varies. Gas has the lowest, about 56 kg CO2 per gigajoules, okay? Whereas coal has the highest, about 96 kg CO2 per gigajoules. Multiply it by that energy equivalent of that fuel that you had consumed, and then you now see how much you're emitting in terms of CO2. Okay, and then also understand that this fits in generally to what the carbon footprint that is being declared by both the organization and your country. So you are a critical part of this this situation, meaning that you also have a critical role to play in trying to manage it. So every one of us have a role to play. I wouldn't know if anyone has a question.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. That was a mind-blowing presentation. Thank you so much for this knowledge that you have impacted upon us. Like we said from the beginning, many of us are learning new things, and many of us are unlearning old things, while many of us are relearning and refreshing our knowledge base. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sacrificing your knowledge, your time, your energy, your resources to come and enlighten us. We really appreciate this. Thank you so much, Ma. Please, let's see your feedback in the comment section. Let us see your feedback. How was the presentation? Let us see your feedback in the comment section.
Walila,
Thank
I'm
you for
sorry
the
to
important.
interject. Walila, I'm sorry to interject because it's almost time for prayers. Can I speak for just 1 minute or so?
Okay.
First of all, I'm not
No
surprised
problem,
because
sir.
I know the stuff Lovely is made of, so I'm not surprised she did this excellent presentation. In fact, her presentation is about 4 papers combined together. So I want to congratulate her. I want to thank her. I know who she is and I know what she's capable of doing. And I know very soon she will come to the limelight. Everybody will know her. And for this presentation, I have a prize for her, and I hope I will send it across to Lagos to her, Lovelin. Congratulations, you made us proud. The sky is the limit. And thank you, Alula, for giving her opportunity. I'm happy that we're able to make it this week to do the carryover, to carry over the paper. So thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Tokulawal. Thank you so much for the gift. I know she's going to receive it anytime soon. Thank you so much, sir, for all you do always. Really appreciate you. So because of time, we have 3 persons who have raised their hand. Please, after these 3 persons, we might not take any other hand because we don't want people to start bringing up a discussion after someone has already said something. So if you have any question, raise up your hand now. We won't take any other person to ask any question or put any contribution forward. So we have 4 persons. We have 5 now. We have 5 now who has raised up their hand. So after these 5, we are not taking anymore. 5 is okay. 5 is okay, please, because of time. Number 1, we have Mr. Daniel. Please note your number. Number 1, Mr. Daniel Saiki. Number 2, Mr. Minapo Peter Onfo. Number 3, Mr. Titus Onronilewa. Number 4, Mr. Charles Obi. Number 5, Mr. Tolulope Oladoye. And we will take the last person also. Number 6, Engineer Christopher Chime. Please, let's make our questions brief, or our input contribution brief and concise, so that we're able to have work within the scope. Thank you very much. Over to you, Engineer Daniel Saiki.
Thank you very much. Hear me from your hand, please.
We can hear you. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for this great opportunity, because I've been wanting a platform like this where we can discuss environmental KPI. And when it comes to environmental KPI, carbon footprint cannot be excluded once to reduce the amount of carbon footprint to the environment, because it has one of its own effects on the global warming and environmental impact. Having said this, Ma, please, for an organization, how can we calculate, carbon emission, knowing the fact that different operations are being done in the factory? For instance, if you are using diesel, of course, you have to get your diesel consumption maybe from your flow meter, or the diesel you are using in the factory. Let's say from the grid too, and then depending on the grid, if we are generating power from electricity or from water, and if we are generating power from hydro, they all have different conversion factor. And then and for gas, because for my own facility here, so we have conversion.
Engineer Saiki, please make it brief because of time. Please,
Okay,
like we said, let our questions be concise and brief because of time,
okay,
please. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. So how can we trend carbon footprint emission from a facility, knowing fully well that there are different energy consumption ranging from diesel to electricity, that's the grid, and to gas, and then knowing fully well that we have production. So are we going to trend it based on metric ton on your calculation, or it will be as per your production per tonnage?
Okay, do I respond now, or should I take all the questions and respond one after the other? How would you want it?
Okay. Well, anyway, which one is okay for you? Anyone at the city, you are the one answering the questions. Which one is okay for you?
It's fine. Let me respond. Thanks. I couldn't pick your name. Thank you for the question. The question is wonderful. I think is what everyone would actually be looking forward to understand. So it's a timely question. Okay. So your question is for an organization, how can carbon emission be calculated for different sources of fuels, right? If I got that correctly, being that you could be using AGO, LPFO, coal, gas, whatever form of fuel, okay? Even waste, I mentioned, some people burn grasses, other post-consumer waste too can also be combusted. So how do you measure that? Was that the question?
Yes. Is it in metric tons or in any other unit?
Okay, awesome. So
okay,
basically,
to going to trend it as per
trend
your production, or
okay, let me explain. Yeah, let me explain. Okay, so I'll have to split it. For CO2 is basically estimated or calculated. Okay, so there are templates for estimating CO2. What you only need to impute in the template is basically your operational factors. Okay, if you are producing, let's say you're producing paper. That's what you produce, okay? And then you now look at what are the basic raw material used in the paper production. Is there any way that you also need to combust anything and all of that? If you are combusting, maybe in the pulp production process, if you need to combust dry, what form of heat are you using, okay? Are you using electrical heat, maybe from heaters? Okay, for that, you have to look at the kilowatt hour or the megawatt hour that was utilized. And for each kilowatt hour or megawatt hour, okay, you have to multiply it with the emission factor. So for each kind of source, if it's renewable, it has emission factor. Even solar has an emission factor. Yes, solar has an emission factor. And every other type of fossils that you also use has an emission factor. The only thing is that for solar, the emission factor is very minute. Okay, so once you multiply the emission factor, which will give you the emission factor will be in kg CO2 per megawatt hour or per kilowatt hour. You multiply it by that megawatt hour that was generated or kilowatt hour that was generated, you get your kg CO2. That is on absolute. So CO2s are calculated on absolute level and on intensity. So first and foremost, you have to know your absolute. So now you have gotten that of electricity. Next is thermal. Any type of fuel that you're using in the system to achieve heat, that is thermal energy. You have to look at what is the quantity, like I explained before. So that energy, if it's gas, it will be in either normal meter cube or standard meter cube or meter cube, okay? That's a volumetric flow rate. If it's LPFO or any other liquid or AGO, it will be also in meter cube or liters, okay? If it's cold or thereabout, it will be in kg. So now your aim is to convert it to mass. So for you to be able to convert the gaseous and the liquid fuel, you have to use their density to be able to do that. So once you convert it to a unit in mass, you now look at what is the calorific value, NCV, not the GCV, the NCV of that fuel. So you multiply with the NCV, you get it in an energy content, either in kilocalories, you convert to gigajoules. Then you multiply that with the emission factor, which is in kg CO2 per gigajoules. So that gives you the tons of CO2. Once you add all of this, you get your tons of CO2 on absolute level. Then another way to report it is on intensity. You now look at what is the quantity, what are the total quantity of product that came out from that process. So once you divide that absolute emissions with the total quantity, you have it in intensity. That's when you see tons of CO2, kg CO2 per ton of this, kg CO2 per number of this. That's intensity. So that is how to estimate it. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, so is it because from my own end, we use different conversion factors to trend carbon emission.
And no, you don't have to trend CO2 emission. You calculate it.
Yes,
so
yes.
The only one that you measure is NOS source. So we have meters for measuring NOS source. NOS source will always come in ppm, parts per million, okay, which you convert to milligram per normal meter cube. Then when you check your flue gases, you get the normal meter cube, multiply it and you get it in absolute value in milligram, multiply it with about 1 million or so to take it to grams. That is how to estimate that. But for CO2, you have to calculate it. You don't use an instrument to measure it and tell you this, you know.
So I was told that PACN, NEPA, has their own conversion rate for grid and for hydro. Is that true, ma?
Say it again.
So I was told that
yes.
PACN, right? So
okay,
if you are getting source from the grid, so you have to go to their office to get the new conversion factor rate.
Let me quickly answer that. So what we do in estimating CO2, we follow what is called global standards. So my advice would be to use IPPC standard for emission factors. That is what is globally acceptable, and it could be what PHCN is using as well, because I don't know what they are using. But I would always advise for us to use the IPCC standard or emission factors to be able to estimate.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Next person, Mr. Peter Onfo.
I'm with you.
Yeah, you raised your hand.
Yes, I did. Straight to my question.
Okay, thank you.
Greetings to you all. Greetings to you. I appreciate the presentation. I want to thank the organizers as well. I have 3 questions, 2 have been answered. Let me just go to the remaining one, the last one. The last one has to do with international determined contributions. By our presenter's estimation, can he tell us the status of our national development? Are we making progress as expected or not? That's my question. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I heard you very, very well. Very, very nice question.
That's all right. That's all right.
Very, very nice question. Okay, so I will not give you an exact, but then I can explain. If you find out from what was first ratified and what we just currently ratified, you find out that there's an improvement. First, what was ratified was not accurate. It was just like, okay, let us jump into this and declare and say, okay, that we are subscribing to Paris Agreement to achieve net zero. And then afterwards, it started taking big shape. We started becoming more serious. Okay, we now have NCCC, we have a lot of policies as well. We have, entities being established to ensure that this record success. That was what gave rise to the recent one that was ratified, which brought down our emission at par. And also, Nigeria has gone further to also involve other agencies, global agencies like UK8, to be able to estimate. Okay, of late, I was able to meet one of their city managers for CO2 emissions. And, you see a lot of serious work that they are doing to ensure that Nigeria achieves this. Then to ask if we are actually achieving our aim, okay, we'll have to look at the practice. Are there things that we were not doing before that we are doing now? Which is yes. Let's even look at the transportation decarbonization. Hey, somebody needs to mute. Someone needs to, thank you. So are there things that we are not doing before that we are doing now that is actually in line with decarbonization? Yes, the answer is a big yes. I'll use an example for transportation decarbonization. So initially, you will not hear anything about CNG, but CNG is becoming a thing. And that is one of our targets to achieve what? Transportation decarbonization. And it's becoming a big force. Apart from that, industry has also, a kind of being mandated to look towards that. You find out a lot of industry trying to also decarbonize, because like I mentioned, what fits into the country is what industries, individuals, and all of us do. Okay, so with that, we have seen that there's a light. We already in line. Just this COP28, we have seen Tinubu also making another declaration that we are going to reduce methane. So and I told you this year alone that we're going to have a carbon, but it's a big deal. CCUS is now, Nigeria is trying to prototype that, which will help us in minimizing our CO2 emissions. So, there are factors, there are a lot of things on ground to ensure that we achieve that. So it's in process. I don't think it's yet time to say this is where we are, okay? Authoritatively, the agency that is responsible could tell us that this is the percentage that we have achieved. But from the way we are seeing it, we can see a lot of things are in motion towards the actualization of the set targets. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mafat. You answered the question based on the COP28 that you mentioned, because I wanted to add that to it. So if you want to know more about, I think it's a recent news that came up yesterday. There was this forum that Nigeria is a subsidiary to, that Tinubu went there also, and he spoke addressing the stakeholders concerning non-CO2 carbon emission reduction that happened yesterday or 2 days ago. So the only issue now that we have is that we have issues with statistics. I don't know if I'm correct, ma'am. We see have issues with getting enough statistics. There are a lot of actions in place to address it. But I know with time, when the Bureau of Statistics also come into this issue, they can actually give us a factual amount. Like we said, if it's not measured, it's not. How did you put that statement again? If it's not measured, it's not done, Abi.
What you cannot measure, you cannot manage.
What you cannot measure, you cannot manage. So there's need for appropriate measurement, which we need to tell us, yes, this is where we are. But based on what she just said, there are a lot of actions that the current administration is. In fact, not only current, even the past ones have been trying to put some things in place. So thank you very much for that lovely question.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, then Mr. Titus.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Titus, next person, Mr. Titus. Mr. Titus, going.
Can you hear me? Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, loud and clear, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Go ahead with your question, sir.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Loveline, well, I know you, so you are doing a good job. I want to answer, I have my question, but by virtue of what I do currently, I want to make some contribution to the last question.
Thank you.
Currently, I'm a member of the Steering Committee for Partnership for Activation of Climate Action in Nigeria under the auspices of the NCCC. I'm supposed to be in Dubai for COP, but I have some official engagement that kept me off. So a lot of things have been done, but we don't have the data.
Exactly, statistics.
So in one of our meetings, that's what we deliberated on, that we don't have data in Nigeria. And you can't do sustainability and climate change monitoring without data. So we have been coerced into this private partnership for activation of climate action in Nigeria as a member of the steering committee, and we are working out to see how we can bring together all the MDAs so that, because everybody is doing different things. So we want to see how all of us can just come under one umbrella, and then we'll be able to have a relevance data for all the climate change or climate related matters. So that's just, I just want to talk about that one. Then the second addition I want to make is, Loveline was talking about IPCC. You can get your data, your grid emission factor from IPCC. You can also get from IEA, International Energy Agency. So you either get it from IPCC or you get it from the International Energy Agency. So just to add up to all those questions. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Okay.
Now,
okay. Go ahead, sir.
My own question now is,
thank you.
My own contribution now is, I look at what individuals can do. I look at what organizations can do. I look at what the country can do. So I'm going to talk about what organizations can do. And I'm going to be using my company as a particular example of what we are doing. We operate a hydropower station, and it's noted to be a green energy. But we also know that there are other emissions here and there in the process of power generation, not the power generation itself, maybe your vehicle transporting and some other things like that. One of the things we have done in our organization was the company provided, we have Starbucks before, but because people are using, we give people fuel, at a particular level of the office, you have fuel. So you go weekly and pick your fuel and then you drive to the office. But now we install that and then ensure that everybody go with the Starbucks. And I tell you, in Q3 alone, that had over 55% reduction in our PMS and AGO usage. So you can see what I'm talking about. So the company needs to take some decisive decisions if they also want to reduce the carbon footprint emission. That's one. Number two, we have solar, we have hydropower energy. So we're looking at phasing out the current buses now and bringing electric vehicles because we have the power. So all we just need to do is create points where these electric vehicles can be charged, and the current electric vehicle can still run for 18 hours. So, and our come to office is just about 10 or 15 minutes. So we're looking at how that happens so that maybe the emission from PMS and AGO could actually be reduced as low as 5% or 0. So those are some of the things we are doing, and I want organizations to also learn some of the things they can do. Number three, currently a lot of offices have been doing hybrid. You come to work a particular day and then you stay home and work. Now, what some of the organizations are doing is that they are transferring their carbon footprint to the individual. So when you stay in the house, especially in Nigeria, where you know you don't have good electricity, so you have to work because you are home. You have to either use your generator to generate electricity so that you can power your laptop and work for the company. But my organizations, what we did was that we allowed the hybrid work, but we installed solar energy in each of our staff's houses in Abuja. So we are not transferring, we are not greenwashing what we are doing. So we are also actually taking cognizance that, okay, these guys could be working from home, but let them work from home under a green energy as well. So I'm sure some organizations can also learn that. So it's not just about working from home, because when I'm working from home, am I using my own generator? So the company has indirectly transferred to me the responsibilities of their carbon footprint. I don't know if some of us will understand what I'm saying. Yeah, we also look at a lot of tree plantings. We do tree plantings and a carbon sink. One plant that is as old as 10 years can actually save you 10,000 TCO2 of carbon emissions. So these are some of other things that people can do, can plant a lot of trees everywhere from time to time. And in the north here, tree planting is very difficult, but we have to do dry season watering to make sure that our tree survives. So I hope one of these days, some of us will have an opportunity to visit Shirora, the power plant. Let me also talk about carbon credit. Currently, we are green energy, we are hydro. So we've started saving, because by the time we do our net emission calculation, we discovered that we have a lot of carbon credit that is mitigated. So we've already started doing carbon credit business. So we have organizations that have started approaching us, and we are selling out our carbon credit for them. So you can also, if you are a green energy, you can also look at what we are doing and then support that. Yeah. I had my beloved Loveling talking about regulations and requirements. Recently, the Federal Reporting Council has adopted ISSB Standard 1 and S1 and S2, and is taking effect from 1st January 2024, which says that organizations will submit sustainability report in the SS1, and then in the SS2, you have to make your climate disclosure. So we should look at that and see how that translates into what we do in organization, how we are prepared for this. So it's not going to be just the normal financial reporting that we do, but this time around, we are going to be asked on sustainability reporting and climate disclosure. So these are the things I just said, let me just add so that we can have some understanding in this, practical understanding from this course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Titus. I don't know if I'm heard. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Go on, ma'am.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Titus. I don't think I would want to add. It was quite expository. I like that. Yes, ISSB, that's International Sustainability Standard Board, which was newly launched, S1 and S2. Aside that, at the moment, a lot of industry, especially the ones that are publicly listed, so sustainability reporting, which is a focal part of the annual report. And of course, you must report according to ESG, environment, social, and governance. And part of the environmental matrix is just what we're explaining now. So even if you don't do it, you see your investors will ask you questions. Another aspect which is critical is rating agencies like CDP, Carbon Disclosure Project. On their own, you will see you'll be getting invites. And if you don't disclose, they'll rate you 0. And you know what that can do to your image as an organization. So there's a whole lot of driving force around all of this, ensuring that companies do the right thing, trying to hold companies accountable and responsible for their actions. So it's a call for everyone to try to do the right thing. I'm also excited that you try to explain carbon sequestration, because I can see somebody's talking about, it's asking question which relates to carbon sequestration. So when you start talking about the tree planting in your organization, I was excited because you have brought that to our focus. So I would want to now use this to quickly respond to that question, carbon sequestration. So basically, when we talk about carbon sequestration, we're looking at any methodology that we adopt to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it. So it could be natural or it could be man-made. So when we use a natural methodology, okay, we plant trees, we engage in processes like afforestation. So because we see plants as natural carbon sinks, but then there are other man-made methodologies, okay, like scrubbing methods, like CO2 scrubbers, like CCUS that we mentioned. So once you're able to capture it from the atmosphere and store it in such a way that it will not give rise to GHG, you are engaging in carbon sequestration. So that is basically what carbon sequestration means. So you see a lot of organizations trying to generate their own carbon sinks by, planting a lot of trees. Okay, so that is environmental responsibility, environmental stewardship, but then it is a way to save the ecosystem. So that is it. Thanks, Mr. Titus, for the perspective that you brought about even the carbon credits. Awesome. Your organization is doing a lot of big work. Thank you so much.
Very true. Very true. You are very right. You are doing a whole lot.
Yes.
Yeah, I even love the fact that when they've given the responsibility for carbon emission, carbon calculation, or whatever to their employees, they still go ahead to provide a solution by installing solar panels for them. That is really good.
Yes.
I remember that this man, Elon Musk, was getting angry some days ago, and he was talking statically about those that are doing greenwashing. There was the way he coined that statement. I think it was about I read that news and I was laughing. Yeah, because the truth is that there are so many that are doing greenwashing and pretending like they are actually supporting the environment. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for your support in your organization for making that to happen. So before we go to the next person, please kindly remember part of what we do. We still have a whole lot of persons here. Briefly, our Setting the Pace event. Setting the Pace event, even part of our speakers will be talking about sustainability also. So our Setting the Pace event is coming up January 13, and registration is already on. Just 5,000 naira only. For those that attended 1.0 that happened in January this year, they will tell you what the amount of engagement that we had, knowledge base, connections, and every other thing that happened that particular day. And the second version, the second part, 2.0, will be happening January 13, 2024. That is in a couple of weeks, let's say 4 or 5 weeks. So registration is already ongoing. We are waiting your registration to join us, to be a part of us. It is an hybrid event, physical and virtual. So for physical event, 5,000, for virtual also 5,000 naira only for each individual. For corporate, there's also opportunity to invite your organization, your colleagues at work. Your organization can register some of their employees, because the discussion is not only about sustainability. We have 6 speakers: Engineer Jami Badmos, Mr. Dakomalade. We have Mrs. Lara Yeku. For those that are on LinkedIn, they will know who Ms. Lara Yeku is. She's a capacity building professional and HR. And we have a lawyer also talking about legal issues. And we also have a formal contestant, I think, under our court party in Lagos for governorship, Mr. Hakim Disin, also talking about politics in professionals in politics. So we have a lot of discussion that has to do with individuals and organizations as a whole. So it's an opportunity for everybody to come and let us start the year in a very high pace, setting the pace 2.0. So we are waiting your registration. If you want to register, you can chat me up, so I will send you a link to register. And lastly, our ISO 9001 editor course is happening is starting next week, not this Monday. Next week Monday, ISO 9001 Quality Management System Lead Auditor course, and you want to miss this. It's an opportunity for you not just become an lead auditor, but to understand what auditing really means. Those that have attended our class will tell you the kind of training that we deliver at Codal Safety Consult. Our trainings, ISO classes, ISO course is approved by QMSAI, Quality and Management System Auditor Institute. Thank you. At the end of this session, we will also remind us on this also. So the next person, quickly, Mr. Charles Obi, over to you, sir.
Right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Engineer Loveling, for the nice presentation. I really appreciate and I'm excited about this. Okay, yeah, most of my questions have been responded to, but the last one that said about carbon offsets, planting of trees and all that. My question is this: how do we, what size of trees for a retail stores? For retail stores that space constraints, for instance, quick service restaurant, supermarkets that suffers of space. What kind of size of trees? With green veg, maybe green veg, dwarf trees, can it actually suffice to help, or do we have a grown trees before we can say we are calculating with this number of trees and this is the number of trees that we use for carbon offset? Second one is like a request, because calculations I did recently for carbon emissions, naturally I use a conversion factor from Ghana, and countries have theirs, varies. I know now I've heard about IPCC, IEA, and all that. All these things have their own maybe global standard. Should we use a global standard? Those countries have their own different conversion factors, emission factors. How do we run around this? Then the last one is for FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods companies. Do we have a kind of most of these conversion factor emission templates, calculation templates for GHGs, greenhouse gases, so that there will be a uniformity? Because the truth about it is that various companies are calculating based on what they have pinned on the net, and they'll just present it to their board and say this is what they have calculated. But if we now said, okay, this is a uniformed thing that has been approved, I think that will go a long way to help me personally. I think I need to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the questions. First one was about an industry or an establishment that is that does not have so much space, about carbon sequestration, right? That was the first question.
Yes.
Okay, so let me explain. When it comes to carbon sequestration, okay, you must not, the tree must not be localized where you operate. Okay, it must not be like you find the organizations that are space trapped. You still find them, planting trees. I'm just trying to remember one organization in, I think it was in China also that I was following. They did something like a green wall. Okay, it wasn't around their premise. They adopted a location. So in environmental management and conservation, most times you see entities adopting a location. Okay, they adopt a location, then make that location green. That is part of their environmental responsibility. So nobody says that it must be in your establishment that you must plant it. Then when it comes to carbon sequestration, also different types of tree have their own have the quantity of CO2 they can actually reduce or remove from the atmosphere. It is not the same type. So there's maybe afterwards you can actually reach me so that we can talk about this. So it's not all trees have different quantity or tons or metric tons of CO2 they can remove from the atmosphere at maturity. Okay, so that is another thing that you have to consider. So in planting trees, it's best to look at ones that will have a high sequestration rate, okay, at maturity. Then, and also you have to understand that in estimating is a long-term estimation. It's not something that you plant now. You now estimate that you have been able to remove this quantity of these tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. There is also what we call the survival rate of these trees. We also monitor that. It's possible that if you plant 9,000 trees, it's not all of them that will make it to maturity. So it is a long-term project, like you leave it for nature, then you can be able to estimate it. That's how that works. The second question, please, can you rephrase the second question?
Sorry, second question is like I said, the different countries' conversion factors.
Oh, all right. Okay, awesome. Yes. Yeah, of course, different countries, different entities. But then when it comes to, environmental management. We go with industry practice. We go global practice rather. Okay. So then in global practice, we also have industry practice, meaning that, for instance, now for all cement industries, they are aligned to GCCA. GCCA is the global organization that manages or actually regulates the cement industry. Okay, so it's Global Cement and Concrete Association. So they will give a carbon budget. This is carbon budget estimation from all of the cement industries, and then they have their own templates. Sometimes it may come from a World Business Council on Sustainable Development, CSI, and all of that. Alternatively, the global standard is basically to use IPCC. Okay, you can also use DEFRA. So they have these global standards that has actually been audited, approved. So we have what we call EAG, Expert Advisory Group. They bring industry leaders from a lot of different sectors to sit together and harmonize this. So it's not something that is peculiar to just this sector. Okay, so they sit together, harmonize, and then bring out this formula after a lot of analysis, experimentation, hypothesis, and all of that. That is why it's always best. Okay, if you cannot lay your hands on anyone around you that you can trust, then it's best to go with global standard. I have seen organizations that use IFC standards or targets, especially when it's more stringent than the organizational targets or standards, because they are looking at themselves as global citizens. So that is what unifies all of us. So I wouldn't subscribe to use this or that you cannot validate. Okay, but then again, if your country standard is more stringent than that global, it's always better to tilt towards that. That's how we are always, advised to rule. So if your country standard or target or estimation process is more stringent, then you have to go with that. But in a case where this global standards, target, estimation process is more stringent, then you have to go with that. Is there any other question remaining?
All right, thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes. The last one I said, FMCG, most of these calculations, most of these templates is a request. If there's anywhere we can actually lay hands to have a uniformity, just like we have in this platform, a classroom, because different persons, I can tell you in this class, have different templates they're using in different calculations. So they run a lot of calculations that whether it's gas, whether it's grid energy, whether it's diesel burning and all that, they have different calculations. I can tell you.
What template
I don't
do you
know.
use?
I'm actually seeking
what
for a request.
template do you use?
It's just kilowatt, megawatt consumption. Okay, please.
Let me support you there. Okay, so when it comes to estimation of CO2, okay, best bet, if you actually look at IPCC or you look at there are GHG standard emission templates, okay, US standard emission templates, which is under DEFRA. You also see them. So it shows you how to estimate both scope 1, scope 2, and more especially scope 3. Okay, wherever you go, it's still the same methodology. The difference in all of this is what you use. So when I am estimating my own CO2, the emission factor is the same anywhere you go. Emission factor does not change. What changes is the type of fuel I consume and the quantity of fuel I consume. And if I am actually recuperating, recycling, or reusing any one of them. So the standards are straight. Even if I don't have a template, like I told you, I can easily estimate it. So long as I know, it's just to be able to understand your feed point. Where are those emissions? Where are the sources from? And to be able to, determine the actual quantity and the type. That is where the problem lies, because you see a lot of people when they're estimating, they don't use the accurate NCV, they don't use the accurate density. So in the long run, they are estimating less than what they're actually, generating. That is where the problem lies. But once it comes to the emission factors, they are standard.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. So the next person, Engineer Christopher Chime. Sorry, Mr. Joseph, we can't entertain your question, Mr. John Joseph, this time around. We've already numbered those that'll be talking. I'll be asking questions. Thank you. Mr. Christopher, back to you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Good evening, sir. Loud and clear, sir. Quick, please.
Okay. I'm not going to ask any question any longer. I'm satisfied with what I've heard, both from the lecturer and the contributors, most especially Mr. Titus, who are added. I think I've learned so much, though I did not start with you people because of network. But the questions I will have asked have been asked and answered. Even in the course of answering, many other things were touched. So I'm satisfied. One other thing I would like is, please, maybe she can drop her contact so that we can reach to her. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Just pressing Mr. Tunlope Oladoye.
Everyone. Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hello, you can go ahead, sir.
Okay. I came in late due to the fact that I got the message late. So I couldn't pick so many, but from the questions, I could get a clear and some vivid explanations to some of the questions I want to raise. But I still want to ask, I don't know whether it has been raised before I came in or something. We were talking about trees and the likes. In one of the questions, engineer was trying to solve. I don't know what about deforestation I don't know what the government of Nigeria, we know the government also has their own K-leg in the aspect of carbon emission and the likes. Yeah, what is the government doing? Because I could hear, okay, the government are doing some things, are making some steps. They are now at UAE or something like that. What are the government doing to enlighten people about trees, growing things that can likely reduce the carbon emission? Because my first degree was in botany, and I did some projects on this carbon of a thing. So because I think that's for average Nigerians, that's the just like most simple thing we can actually do to save our environment. What are the government doing? And again, about the government, all these combustion rates, companies, flaring gases, especially if you go to Delta axis, you notice that even the iron sheets of those communities turn brown. I have a colleague there working.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please, kindly let's make our question brief so that we can leave you as soon as possible.
So the
question is already.
Okay, the question is, what are the government doing to help in terms of all this deforestation and the likes? Thanks, and God bless.
Okay, thank you for the question. I believe you want to know the role of government or what they are currently doing in terms of sensitizing or advocating for reduction in deforestation, and also advocating for afforestation. That's the question, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that takes us to regulatory agencies. Okay, so regulatory agencies, there are some regulatory agencies that actually measure on biodiversity. Okay, so you find out that for any organization during the project state, you have an EIA. Okay, that's an environmental impact assessment, which is being done by the organization. And that EIA, you declare all your flora, fauna, okay, which is your biodiversity. This is what you actually met before you started the project. And these are the species, these are the trees that can be at risk due to deforestation and all of that. Okay. And then you now have an environmental management plan also. What are your plan and also your rehabilitation and restoration plan in order to, restore any aspect of the environment that you may have hampered during the process of the operations. So these are taken seriously, okay, in order to ensure that deforestation is minimized, because you would not say there will not be industrialization because of this. But then what we are looking at, even as there will be industrialization, what are you going to do in order to ensure that you bring back the ecosystem to that balance? So that's why you see organization after a while, they start afforestation projects. They start other projects to ensure maybe wildlife attraction, a project that will also help in the restoration of the, biodiversity and all what you may have or you may not have. So these are things that, organizations set in motion to ensure that it is actually, we manage the ecosystem. But then again, they don't do it in isolation. There are regulatory agencies that come around to monitor. Okay, I'll give you an instance with the cement industry, because before because we do mining as well in order to assess raw material deposits underground. So in order to assess those material, you have to remove vegetations, remove overboarding before you can assess those basic raw material. And then because of that, you must have a biodiversity management plan. In fact, it has become a big requirement. They will also send, apart from, they will do auditing. There's an auditing to ensure whether you're doing that. And also we have what we call ECM, environmental condition monitoring. They'll send delegates to come around to look at what you're doing. Then on general notes, we have agencies, we have operations to ensure that, people comply. For instance, in Lagos, we have what we call Green Lagos. Okay, we have other agencies like this climate change summit that they always do in Lagos, which is part and parcel of a way to ensure that people understand this is what you should do in terms of environmental restoration. And also, that Green Lagos, part of what they do is to give out seedlings. They give out seedlings to organizations. I think I approached one. There was one entity, one organization I also read about. I had to approach. They give out seedlings. Okay. And other countries, apart from Nigeria, I know Tanzania also do that. They give us seedlings, just if you actually indicate interest that you want to plant trees, you want to, you have a space, because most constraint is, do you have spaces to plant these trees? So the only thing is that, how are we able to access the information? And if we're not able to access it, because we do not know, but things are happening. There are things in motion to ensure that, we imbibe all of this. And then, of course, there's a lot of sensitization going on. Now that you have heard this, you have become part of the ambassador. So you can, help us also to spread the message to all those that haven't heard that. Thank you.
Document
All
for
right.
the
I wouldn't know if I've answered your question. Any other question? Is there any question we've not handled?
There are no other questions. Those are questions that I raised at the beginning. And I think that'll be all for today. It's already 7 o'clock. Honestly, we must sincerely appreciate you for gracing the event, for choosing to come and in details give us what we could have paid a whole lot of money for. Thank you for your time. You spent your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you for spending your energy. Thank you for spending all your resources, your data that you used to come online, everything. You spent it just to ensure that you deliver and you contribute to the growth of the professionals. And we really appreciate you for that. Thank you so much, man. And also a big thanks to everyone who has made it to this occasion. Also, without you, it will have been so boring. Without you, it wouldn't have been engaging, because it's actually a combination of two parties, those who are ready to give and those who are ready to receive. If you don't have those who are ready to receive, those who are ready to give will not be able to make use of what they have. And the same thing applies to those who are ready to receive also. If there's no one to give us what we want to receive, definitely both parties need to work together. And thank you all for coming in. Thank you all for your presence, for staying all this moment. We can't appreciate you enough. We have so many of us that has always been here with us for over 2 years that have been doing this. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our speaker. Thank you all for your time. Thank you all for everything you do. In a couple of weeks, I think we are going to have our final enlightenment series for this year. In a couple of weeks, we'll be having our final enlightenment series for this year. And we are looking at still on the same topic of sustainability, carbon emission, greenhouse effect, and the likes.
You there inside?
Thank you all.
When we turn up. Take. Go and open the door.
Thank you all for your time, and we wish you a lovely new week, a lovely day ahead. And also remember, like we said, Setting the Pace 2.0 is registration has commenced and happening on the 13th of January 2024. That is in, let's say, in 5 weeks' time. Please don't say that you want to wait till the last minute like we all did last year. You all waited till the last minute before you started rushing for the payment, for registration. Please let us start registering now. We also have a couple of we also have people who has bought tickets for us to give people for free. Some will buy 2 tickets, 4 tickets. If you have the capacity to also sponsor others to join this wonderful event, or you have the opportunity to discuss with your HR and your organization to register for maybe 2 workers, 3, 4, 5, 10, as you may, you will see that at the end of the day, when they attend this wonderful event, they will give you a lot of good feedback that will improve their productivity in the workplace. So it's an event for everyone. Let us start registering. And also, our ISO 2001 lead auditor course is coming up next week. The first batch was, I think, in August or so. The next batch is coming up this next week. People have started registering. We just completed our ISO 5001 and integrated management class. Is not just, like we said the other time, just for you to have a certificate, but to go through the real training, to go through the real drill. We have posted some things about our training content. Our whole content is exceptional. Our content is different, is unique, and our training methodology is not compared to any other. So give it a trial, register with us. It's just 150,000 for the lead auditor course, and the cost, the fee covers for the training, for the certification, for examination, the e-learning materials. We also have a review session that we do. So with the 150,000 naira only for ISO 9001. Should you want to register or you want to get further clarification, number that are posted. Thank you all, everyone. Thank you all for your time. We can unmute now and thank our wonderful speaker. Let us unmute and thank Ms. Loveling Okoye for a wonderful presentation. Thank you and God bless you. Let us unmute now and let's thank her for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you, lovely.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you, lovely.
Thank you very much.
Lovely.
I'll see you again in the nearest future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, Ms. Loveling, Engineer Waliu. This is Joseph speaking. I raised up my hand earlier, not really for question. It's just for me to add a voice to the setting a pace of 02. For everyone on board, I just encourage you that money for registration is very ridiculous compared to what you're going to gain. I was a beneficiary of
thank you
one, so I'm encouraging everybody to do everything possible to register. So
nice.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you. If you want to have more insight about the feedbacks, we posted all the feedback on Facebook, and we shared the link for you to see the feedback that people are giving us for Setting the Pace 1.0. You don't want to miss this at all. So ensure that you join us for Setting the Pace 2.0. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time well spent. Thank you for the knowledge. Engineer Loveling Okoye, we appreciate you. We love you so much. See you all again on another wonderful series of Safety Moments with Waliola. Thank you and God bless you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
Ma. Thank you, ma.
Thanks, everyone, and bye. Have a great day.
Thank you, madam. We wish we can have your one-on-one contact for further.
All right. Yeah, I shared my LinkedIn details. You can chat me up there.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
I must have missed that.
Okay, let me share it again.
Please do. Thank you so much.
Because there are many. Can you hear me? Sorry. Hello.